Okay, welcome everyone. We are here at in council chambers on March 4th, convening our meeting at 6:41. And I'll look to a council colleague to read the land acknowledgement. Councillor Wilson.
The municipality of North Granville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Granville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you. Colleagues, as you know, we're here specifically to discuss the proposed changes to North Granville's official plan. As such, there's just a single item on the agenda, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the agenda. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Strachan, thank you. And the recommendation is that the agenda for March 4th, 2026 be approved as presented. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Next, of course, colleagues, is the declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And this is, of course, in regards to any perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from tonight's proceedings. Are there any declarations of interest? Not seeing any. We'll move on. So next, of course, we will just provide an order of proceedings in regards to how we'll navigate this evening's discussion. I should emphasize that tonight is the statutory meeting required by the Planning Act in regards to how changes to the official plan are proposed. And obviously, there's a minimum of one council meeting required, which invites members of the public to make comments or provide any sort of feedback. So that is part of tonight's function, is to hear from any delegations from members of our community. I understand that there are a number who may be online, as well as those of you who may be in person. So before we get to those delegations from members of our community, we will have a staff introduction, or sort of staff overview, led by our Director of Planning and Development, Ms. Amy Martin, who is to my right, and then, or left, depending on how you're facing. We also, of course, would like to welcome back Megan Reddy and Rory Baksh of Dillon Consulting. And Dillon has been the team that has helped the municipality of North Granville considerably in navigating changes, or proposed changes, I should say, to this iteration of the official plan. So happy to see Megan's back with us. Megan has been part of several pre-consultation efforts that have been undertaken by the municipality. Then, of course, there is an opportunity for council to ask questions. And to be clear, this has been a staff-led process with just one limited engagement opportunity for council prior to seeing the proposed changes this evening. So it would be natural that council may have questions of the official plan this evening, or may just be digesting information alongside members of the public. So I would encourage council colleagues, should you have questions, simple questions, hard questions, to put them on the table this evening. And then finally, members of the public are most encouraged, if they're here with a concern or an interest, to address us, I presume, at the mic, Ms. Boss. So you all have to come down and use the mic if you'd like to address council and staff. And of course, those who are joining us virtually will do so via Zoom. So with those introductions, I will now invite both Megan and Rory of Dillon Consult. Oh, I skipped Amy. So sorry, Amy. It did make sense that you would go first. Okay, so of course we will invite our Director of Planning to do a quick overview and an introduction. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. I just want to thank everybody in the room this evening, those who are watching online, as well as those who have joined us via Zoom for coming out tonight. We do have another session next week on March 10th for those who couldn't make this evening. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, but I also see some new faces. I will not get into too much detail because I know that Megan and Rory have a very detailed presentation that talks a lot about how we got here. What I want to say is that this process has been ongoing for quite a while, and there is still lots of adequate time for residents to be able to submit comments to the municipality. We do have a dedicated email which is available on our website for this project. And I do anticipate afterwards that, as always, when we have these types of meetings, that there'll be a lot of one-on-one conversations. So afterwards, maybe perhaps you don't have a question you want to ask to the group or to the room, but if you do want to come afterwards and have a chat with the consultants or myself, we are here to have those discussions with you after the formal presentation and question and answer period has ended. So to that end, I want to thank you again for your interest. I find planning fascinating. I think it's, this is a really great document and tool that we have for our community as to how we lay out growth and development and our vision for that for North Grenville. And my goal and aim is to present to council with the assistance of Dillon Consulting a plan that truly reflects North Grenville and what the community wants and desires for our future over the next 30 years. So I'll turn it over to Megan and Rory to do their presentation, and we look forward to engaging with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Director Martin, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone in person and online, for your time and attendance this evening on such an important matter. I know we've spent quite a bit of time so far in getting to the statutory public meeting, and we are excited to present to you the draft updated official plan and give you a bit of an overview. Next slide, please. So our presentation tonight will cover the project background, a little bit of how we got here, and some of the significant updates to the official plan and its mapping schedules, as well as go over some of the next steps in the process and what you can expect to see moving forward. So reviewing the project context and timeline. The municipality's current official plan was adopted in 2018 and is now out of date. There are provincial requirements on the schedule and timelines for which municipalities must review, update, or replace their official plans. And at this point, North Grenville is due for a new one. So the new official plan will have a planning horizon of 2051 and align with recent provincial planning updates and requirements, including some mandatory policy directions and ways to streamline the official plan for readability. The pre-official plan update consultation was completed in 2024. That was a phase and series of engagement activities that took place to help establish the guiding principles for this official plan update, help set the vision, and determine the direction of those discretionary policy sections in the official plan that the municipality has authority to self-determine. And the official plan review, drafting the revised document, was launched in the summer of 2025. So for the pre-OP update consultation, there was a combination of both in-person and virtual engagement activities, including a virtual project website and online map where folks could leave comments, highlighting things that they liked and that they felt the municipality had strong policies for, were supporting, or was doing well, or highlight areas of concern or flag specific areas geographically or in policy where they felt it could use some additional protections or strength. There was an online survey questionnaire that sought to determine the new vision and goals of the official plan, which have been brought into this new revised document. There were a series of community pop-ups in person at Kemptville Live and the Kemptville Farmers Market to help meet folks where they were at, advertise the official plan update, and speak to folks on how the official plan could affect their day-to-day lives, why it should be important to them to attend the engagement sessions, and what kind of feedback we were seeking. We also had a series of advisory committee roundtables, a staff workshop, and interviews with council held virtually in order to look at our municipal decision makers and leaders and make sure that the visions that they had lined up with public feedback that we'd gathered to date. We had 2 community open houses in person. There were maps laid out and a series of mapping exercises where folks could come and mark up the maps. Again, similar to the online map, provide an opportunity to highlight things that seem to be working well or areas for improvement. And we had 3 online community roundtables with a series of feedback exercises that discussed some of the key themes of live, work, and play, and offered an opportunity for residents to address each of those 3 key themes and provide feedback on where they felt the municipality should go to that 2051 planning horizon. Since the summer of 2025 launch of the official plan update, we've also held a virtual meeting with the United Counties. As the North Grenville official plan sits under the United Counties official plan, it's imperative that we align policies and mapping, making sure that both levels work together seamlessly, and there is a way for cohesion between both levels of government. We had an in-person public information center on October 22nd, confirming that the vision and goals gathered from the 2024 consultation still resonated with the community, and to provide an additional opportunity for feedback if anyone had been unable to attend those previous sessions. We had additional advisory committee sessions and a meeting with the Indigenous Advisory Circle, starting up again the process and presenting some of those draft policy directions for confirmation. We've had a staff workshop and a council workshop in person on the draft document to date, and the project website has remained live, and we have the op@northgrenville.ca email address for residents and interested parties to continue to provide feedback, comments, or questions. At this point in time, we're at the blue circle in our timeline, so we're at the council public meeting. We're at the statutory public meeting and are happy to share with the public the draft updated official plan and schedules for comment. From here, we will continue to refine and finalize the official plan and expect it to go for council adoption in the coming months. Now going over some of the changes to the official plan. The official plan's new guiding statement is North Grenville is updating its official plan to make sure it follows new provincial rules, reflects local plans and priorities, and prepares for the community's future where we live, work, and play. The 2024 consultation brought forward key themes, which have been carried throughout the lifetime of the official plan update, including a desire for more affordable and mixed housing options, a stronger sense of community and quality of life across North Grenville, better connections for roads, trails, and transit in new developments, support for local and small businesses, strengthening the local economy, continued focus on attracting jobs and investment, particularly with regards to the green economy and sustainable businesses, protecting and growing our farms and local food system, recognizing the importance of agriculture to North Grenville and the surrounding communities, and providing indoor year-round recreation spaces to improve quality of life for residents of all ages. Since the last official plan, the province has updated the provincial planning statement. So in 2024, Ontario established new mandatory policy directions for municipalities, including legislating the planning horizons, so how far an official plan can look to and how long those policies should consider things like land needs, growth, and management strategies for things like infrastructure. They've determined aligned land use designations and unit supply between county and Ministry of Finance allocations, so looking to make sure that we have an adequate supply of residential land and units for the planning horizon. Requiring housing diversification, so providing a range of housing options and permitting additional residential units as of right on eligible lots only where zoning and servicing requirements can be met. And adding protection for employment areas to bolster Ontario's economy. So new provincial direction requires the preservation of employment areas for manufacturing and logistics by strictly limiting non-industrial uses from those areas and creating a buffer in the surrounding areas. There's also been requirements for public service integration to allow schools and childcare facilities within mixed-use buildings where appropriate and where it can be supported by infrastructure. Additional infrastructure requirements from the province include mandatory mapping updates for floodplains and source water protection, making sure that there's safe drinking water and that housing and infrastructure is protected from 100-year floods, and alignment with 2024 asset management plan to ensure that infrastructure is financially viable over its full life cycle, ensuring fiscal sustainability for the municipality and its assets. There's also a requirement to include active transportation, promoting options to support pedestrians and cyclists, such as sidewalks, mixed-use pathways, and cycling infrastructure where feasible and appropriate. And there's also been regulatory streamlining, removing some urban design policies, as that authority has shifted under the Planning Act, and there are now different requirements available. Some other changes to the official plan include a new vision statement to align with the municipality's new strategic plan, where the municipality has the ability to self-determine policies. They've been updated to align with other municipal plans and strategies, such as transportation plans, infrastructure and servicing plans, and other goals and visions the municipality has in place. And we've simplified the official plan policies for ease of use, reducing duplication between policies and putting it at a higher level where now controls can live in other implementing documents such as zoning bylaws or a CPPS, reducing the need for official plan amendments and the need to apply for continued changes as the municipality adapts and grows. A significant change to the official plan that you will see reflected in both the text and the mapping schedules is the new employment area designation. It's section 10.6 in the revised document, and it replaces the 2018 official plan's industrial land use with this employment area to bring the municipality in conformity with the PPS 2024. It permits clusters of businesses and economic activities such as manufacturing, research and development in connection with manufacturing as an accessory use, warehousing, goods movement, and associated retail and office uses. It also establishes that 300-meter influence area where there will be mitigation strategies in place in order to protect these employment uses from other encroaching uses.
Megan, if I might, perhaps I could just ask council if they have any questions at this stage before we move on. It's a lot of material, so I just want to make sure that council is good as you proceed through lots of very meaningful content. So I see Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. It's very timely to take this break because I did have a question specifically on new employment areas. So that's a new designation, but it doesn't replace the enterprise area, does it?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, yes. So the economic enterprise land use designation remains.
Yes.
The employment area is a new designation where industrial's been removed. There have been some adjustments in the policy. So I would recommend in the red line, like the tracked changes version of the official plan, you can see where we've removed the word industrial, replaced with economic enterprise and how those have shifted. There has been a bit of a rearrangement, and on the maps, you will be able to see how some of those colors have shifted as well. Those boundaries are different from where they were before, but the economic enterprise does remain, acknowledging that that was an important designation by the municipality and supported by the CDAC Advisory Committee as a place for local businesses to grow and kind of have that interim support.
So the enterprise zone, does that only include industrial or does it include the other under employment area? Like the designations, you've got to break down warehousing, manufacturing. Like what distinguishes those two designations or the new one from the previous or the enterprise zone?
The economic enterprise designation isn't intended to have the larger scale manufacturing and industrial uses. Think about it as slightly larger than commercial, but the employment area is those for significant manufacturing and warehouse uses. The economic enterprise is kind of the middle child in between those.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess my question related to Deputy Mayor's question is we talk about manufacturing, research and development, warehousing. So when I think about manufacturing, I often think of larger scale manufacturing, and I'm trying to imagine within the urban service area where lands might exist to support manufacturing. And I presume these would be either privately held or publicly held lands. So I guess my question to you is, in advance of discussing the mapping, did you see a lot of opportunity for the employment area designations within the municipality? Are they heavily concentrated in one area? Help me understand.
Yes, Your Worship.
you.
So the new employment area designation is clustered. It's within the Kentville Urban Service Area on the east side of Kentville. They are around the highway because the intent of employment area is to provide quick access to goods movement corridors. And with the highway being a major truck transit route, they're in there. It was in consultation with staff looking at opportunities for where we could align the employment areas with the county's designation. So our employment area that we have redrawn on the map is in line with the United Counties where they expect to have those as well. So we've matched up the layers of government.
And just logistically speaking, if these are, in many cases, we're speaking of privately held lands, correct? And is it the case that a property owner could be surprised that their lands are now in an employment area designation? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, would these lands up to now have been understood to be used for other things other than this new employment area designation?
The lands that are under employment area were, I believe, a majority, if not all, previously like economic enterprise or similar land use.
I see.
So while it may be a surprise to see the color change and the name change, it's not a change, say, from residential to it now being a significant difference in the land use, a bit of an adjustment. But that is part of why we have the statutory meeting and the process, so that if folks do see that their land has changed and they have questions on how it may affect them, if they had a plan for it and now they're wondering if things need to be changed, this is the window where we do welcome them to come speak to us. We can either explain what is feasible, how it may have changed from previous, and if there's new restrictions, or maybe if it helps open it in line with what they were hoping to do and actually expands permissions.
And maybe just one more question. To that end, are property owners notified of a prospective change in designation in this instance? How would anyone in our community where there might be a shift in designation learn that that shift had taken place? Is it through public notification only, or is there a engagement with the property owner themselves?
I'll handle that, Mayor Peckford. Thank you for the question. In regards to the Planning Act requirements, because this is a global plan, the way and mechanism in which we notify is through notice within the newspaper. We do also post notice at our website, although that's not a Planning Act requirement. Individual property owners aren't necessarily provided with individual notice unless they've asked us to be notified of the official plan review. In regards to the properties that are being discussed in that area, they would have already previously been an industrial designation or economic enterprise designation. So overall, the impact is quite negligible. If anything, those industrial designated lands get a few more permissions. Just maybe for context as to where that is, it's the lands that are to the east of Bridge Street heading down towards Van Buren. Those are already being used for industrial purposes. So we're not changing the nature and characteristic of what had previously been there. The co-op lands is another example of lands that might see that designation change as well, but again, have had that historical industrial use. We're not touching any of the adjacent residential areas. None of that changes. It's just trying to catch up to the policy changes of the provincial planning statement.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, carry on. Any questions over here, colleagues? Okay, thank you for your indulgence. Thank you.
So additional policy edits have also been made to the document and can be seen in the draft OP, reflecting feedback received from the public, council, and the advisory committees. Some of them include officially adding residential as a permitted land use to the Kentville campus lands, supporting its role as a multi-tenant community and educational hub. We have also maintained the 25% affordable housing target as a municipality-wide goal rather than a site-by-site rule, recognizing that while the municipality strives to procure more affordable housing, we want to ensure viability of developments as well, making sure that additional housing can be procured, as some sites have higher restrictions than others. And we have included policies to utilize a community improvement plan, which is a tool for municipalities to allocate certain funds or match funding from landowners or business owners to encourage developers to meet housing targets voluntarily, providing an additional incentive to have affordable housing units for the long term within North Grenville. We've also made additional policy edits on agricultural, rural, economic, and downtown policies, reflecting the feedback that we've received on those specific categories through the public information and education engagement sessions, as previously mentioned. I would like to show some of the new mapping schedules for the official plan. They are significantly visually different from the past ones. Although much of the data and the boundaries do remain the same, It will be a change. The intent of this was to improve the understanding and readability of these mapping schedules for the general public, acknowledging that when shown as a PDF and not as data layers, it can be difficult to read between different crosshatching. And the new schedules now have standardized layouts and templates, again, making them more easy for the public and staff to use them on a day-to-day basis. There have been some boundary adjustments or changes to the layers for schedules A, A1, B, and B1, which you will see on the next slides. And we have updated the templates for schedules B2 and B3, but did want to note that there have been no changes to the content. So Schedule A relates to the land use for the majority of North Grenville. It covers the land use designations, aggregate areas, waste disposal areas, and natural heritage. Schedule A1 is for natural heritage and constraints, highlighting the wellhead protection zones that do have additional policies within the text of the official plan. So if you are within those boundaries that you can see kind of spreading out from the Kentville area, there are sections of the OP that have additional requirements, policies, or mitigation requirements for you under those overlays. Schedule B is for land use in the urban serviced area. And so you will see on this map how there is now the employment area designation that is that dark gray, and you can see it on the eastern side of the municipality surrounding the 416. This is an additional Schedule B, so it has the same data and shows the same land use designations as the previous one, but you will see that there's additional plan development overlays on top. This is to support the long-term population and growth forecast planning that was prepared previously and help show some of those intensification areas where it is expected that over the lifetime of the plan, 2051, or perhaps even later, this is where growth will be targeted to be directed, making sure that we have areas that we are directing additional servicing or infrastructure to, knowing that the municipality must remain financially sustainable and responsible, having planned development and areas where we can target that expansion. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, once again, very timely. My question was about the intensification overlay. Where, it's hard to read where those intensification overlays are, but one that stands out is for, I guess, what has been described as surplus lands of the Ferguson Forest Center, which would be north of 43. Do you see it there? Yeah, where are the other ones? I'm searching for them and I can't find them.
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, I will admit it is a little hard to see on the projection here and printed on PDF. They are a little easier to see online. The intensification overlay is a light green kind of cross-hatching. You will see it on both the north and south sides of 43. There's a little bit on that Ferguson Forest Center area, and then at the intersection at 44. As well, that kind of long blue strip north-south on the west side is also under that intensification overlay. Again, it lines up with that long-term growth forecast and where it was identified in previous studies for where this is the most fiscally responsible or targeted areas for those infrastructure improvements coming off of those major branches. There is nothing planned at this time. The intensification overlay does not pre-approve applications or determine land is going to be developed in any way. It's a way to meet those required land use allocations and forecasts looking forward to where we may need to allocate development in the future. However, any future developments, applications, OPAs, or zoning bylaw amendments would still need to be put through the formal and regular process, regardless of them being included under the intensification overlay. The intensification overlay just adds additional policies to, if you get something approved, perhaps allow a variation from what would otherwise be permitted on that land use designation in areas outside of that. It's a modification.
And does the total area with that intensification overlay satisfy the 174 hectares of desired residential service land?
if I may, Your Worship, handle this question for the Deputy Mayor. I just for the everyone's reference, the 174 hectare reference comes from the county's growth management study, which was presented publicly earlier this week, which the Deputy Mayor is referring to. In short, no, I think the overall, that intensification layer, as discussed with the consultant and ourselves, was looking for areas where we could allow for higher density values, maybe compared to some of our other parts of the community where you might not see those 6-story apartment buildings or dwellings being constructed. In regards to how that contributes, certainly it helps address our demand for housing by allowing for intensification and building up instead of out. But we still do need to look at with the counties, how do we address the housing growth demand as projected by Hemson Consulting, as well as KPMG, who did our growth study back at the end of 2023, which also identified the need for additional land to support housing. So that the intensification layer, I think, helps to try and provide opportunities for intensification, which could reduce the number of acres we'd have to expand by. But that would all be determined on what types of applications that come forward, what types of densities they're proposing, how many units. We would still be looking at expanding our boundaries in the future to service our long-term housing projections.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Director of Planning and Development. So let's just take a look at the section that is marked as intensification overlay on the Ferguson Forest Center lands. So what I understand is that it's currently zoned agriculture, and so it would require a zoning bylaw amendment to develop that, intensify housing in that, on those parcels.
Through Your Worship to the Deputy Mayor, certainly there would need to be a development application that would have to come forward determining how those lands would be developed. When we would review any application, I'm just going to take it away from the property context, but any property within that that proposed overlay area, we'd be reviewing them against the policies that are proposed within the draft official plan to see how they meet the intent and the target of that. And I think what's important to note is that, in the the updated provincial planning statement that came into effect in 2024, the province really put a focus on looking at our strategic corridors. And County Road 43 is a large corridor that supports a lot of transit movement, both personal vehicles, commercial, through our community, which is no surprise as to why we are widening it. But to that end, we need to consider how can we support greater development along these major corridors where you have more infrastructure support to ensure that, one, we're meeting housing goals, but two, that we're creating kind of that, it's like a layer. Like when you think about a community, our community has many layers in how it's developed, so that we're directing those types of uses where they're best supported. Understanding that we do have a lot of older neighborhoods. Sometimes you don't want to put a 6-story building in and amidst that. It's more appropriately located in a more of a, again, that area that can support those higher levels of traffic and people movement. So that's where the intent through conversation with Dhillon Consulting and through our pre-consultation that we undertook was that let's identify where those strategic areas are for that intensification, so that when we do have people coming to the municipality and talking about their projects, we can easily say, well, these are the areas in which we envision that type of development is appropriate. But for any lands moving forward, any proposal, majority of the time, they're looking at least at a minimum a zoning bylaw amendment to address very site-specific conditions, site plan control if it's over 10 units, residential units, definitely if it's commercial or industrial. And we also talked about the vision for mixed-use corridors, which is something that we haven't overly seen, but we're slowly starting to see interest in from developers looking at developing in North Grenville. And so certainly that County Road 43, County Road 44 corridor is something that staff had highlighted would be where we need to focus those additional policies to just ensure that we're getting the type of desired growth where we want it.
Just a final question. I don't want to slow down your presentation, Megan, thank you, but maybe you can have a breather here. So once again, referring to the Ferguson Forest Center parcels that are marked intensification overlay, that would require a zoning bylaw amendment, and as owners of that property, that would have to come from council. Is that correct?
Through your worship, most certainly, if those properties were to ever be developed, we would look to align the zoning of the property to match the proposed use of those lands. Should there be a desire, as understanding the municipality as the property owner, we would take those steps at that time if there should ever be a future proposal to ensure that the zoning is aligned with the reality of what is being proposed.
I think, Ms. Martin, obviously you can hear that there is some reflection on whether or not these Ferguson Forest lands are suitable for intensification, recognizing the logic behind it for sure. But I guess we're trying to digest whether or not, certainly as a council, it's a tenable proposition, if you will, for the community. So appreciate the information that's being shared today. I just wanted to ask, when you look at this wonderfully colorful map in all of its glory, we see Equinel developing fairly intensively, but I don't see a intensification overlay, I think, on any part of Equinel at this time. There are other existing residential developments where one might presume that residential intensification overlay might be suitable. So I'm curious why there was the appetite to look at the vacant land on Ferguson Forest, recognizing your very fulsome explanation, and we appreciate it. But maybe the question is, are there other available lands from your perspective that could accommodate that residential intensification, or I guess it's not residential, but an intensification overlay outside of the Ferguson Forest lands?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. I will answer the question. If any supplemental information, perhaps from the consultants, after I answer, they can add as well. In regards to the Equinel subdivision, there is a specific official plan policy for their development that establishes a maximum number of a density in residential units. So that's why an intensification layer was not contemplated there, because there are already specific policies, and that subdivision is nearing it's ongoing developments, but they are, they're largely getting to the end of most of their phased plans, with some identified lands that could be added in as well in the future for rounding out of the subdivision. The intensification overlay is not just specifically on the front lands of the FFC. It expands down majority of County Road 43 and up part of County Road 44. Again, from staff's perspective, when we had these conversations of where intensification should take place, we looked at where those major corridors were. We are also, as part of looking at our residential policies, looking at areas where it could be appropriate to increase our density allowances, where we do have greenfield development. And what we have been seeing from developers coming forward is that we are getting a mixed use of development, not just single detached, but they are intensifying on parts of their site. So infill and intensification can happen in a variety of different ways. Intensification we see as part of new applications for greenfield development, but we also see in specific corridors. The focus on the 43-44 corridor was just that it's a major transit hub within the community, and just how people move, like how we can move people around and being able to support more development than maybe some of the smaller parts of our community where the existing road infrastructure might not be able to support higher densities. But certainly we can go back and look to see if there are other areas in which we could apply an intensification layer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, I don't mean to preempt discussion. We're here to also hear from the public. I think we were just kind of curious to understand the considerations sort of behind the scenes that led to obviously what is just a draft proposal. So it's not a fait accompli by any stretch of the imagination. So I think the discussion we've had in the moment is helpful, and I'm sure we'll return to it, no doubt. Again, all of these, this presentation tonight is meant to contextualize draft mapping that is by no means final or ratified by council. And tonight, as I understand it, is a consultation meeting. No decisions are being made tonight. It's simply an opportunity for council and members of the community to provide feedback. So just want to issue that caveat in case there are folks in the audience who are concerned about what the end result of tonight is. So Megan, again, thank you for your indulgence. You can carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. All right, Schedule B1, so similar to Schedule A1, shows the natural heritage and constraint areas, this time within the urban serviced area. So it does show those wellhead protection zones that have those additional policies that apply, as well as showing the fish nursery areas, wooded areas, unevaluated or locally significant wetlands. As mentioned previously, Schedules B2 and B3 have had no updates with regards to boundaries on the map, but we did find it important to showcase how they are visually different from the previous versions, B2 being the wildfire hazard mapping. So there are policies related to wildfire hazard in the official plan, and if lands fall within the extreme or high wildfire hazards, they have certain mitigation or precautions that they need to undertake, understandably. And Schedule B3 is the Burt's Rapids close-up, the land use schedule there. Again, no changes have been made to the boundaries or the land use designations in this area, but it is visually different from previous, so we did want to include it in the full set of updated OP schedules. And looking forward to the path ahead, as we've already had a significant amount of work in the official plan project to date, but we are not yet done. There will be an additional public meeting and opportunity for public input next Tuesday, March 10th, I believe in this very same room, also at 6:30 p.m. So looking forward to seeing perhaps some same faces. And if you would please spread the word to others in your community who may be interested or have questions, comments, or concerns they would like to bring forward on the draft official plan. I highly encourage you to make sure that they're aware of the opportunity for input. Following these two public meetings, we will continue to refine the OP and its schedules for approval, including comments received tonight and those submitted online. This will be on feedback received from the public, advisory committee, staff, and council. So now that the draft official plan and its schedules are public, please feel free to reference any specific schedules, areas, or policies that you have a question or comment on. We are still accepting comments on the OP and its associated schedules, and while we do not have a deadline for commenting yet, if or when one is determined, because at some point we will need to set a cutoff, it will be advertised and announced. So please check the project webpage and social media, the municipal website for that date when we do determine when we are closing the commenting period for finalization. And then following that, the final revised official plan and its schedules will be brought forward to council for approval and decision. Reminder again that at this time, everything presented is still in draft and there still is an opportunity for edits and input. So please make sure that you send an email to Amy, to myself, and to the project team so we can make sure to consider everything for inclusion. That concludes my presentation for tonight, and we would like to open up the floor to council for questions. Whether it be on the maps, the policies, or anything else related to the project process so far. Thank you.
Great. So I recognize the Deputy Mayor, but I certainly invite council colleagues on the other side of the table to jump in as desired. So Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and for indulging me earlier with some of my questions, but I only have two left. So.
Okay.
10.3.6, there's two distinct definitions of downtown core. I don't think they're relevant any longer. So I'm questioning whether we should make that distinction in that section of downtown commercial. So I would suggest that the definition below Oxford Street would be the same for above Oxford Street. The BIA is in the process of hopefully expanding to include that, in their footprint. And I do want to thank you and/or Director Martin for extending the downtown core along Van Buren, because that's an area that the BIA would like to expand into and to service. So that's my first question. The second question is, in the urban service area, there's 7 land use designations, including agriculture. But what is open space? How is that defined? That's one of the designations. What is open space? Well, I know what open space is, but how is it defined in terms of the OP? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor. To answer your first question, we will take a look at those, the downtown commercial and core definitions and look at unifying them. I know we have been made aware through the process of the potential changes to the BIA boundaries, and that has been underway at this time. So when we do have the final and formal decision, we'll make sure that those policies are updated and reflected in the official plan. With regards to the open space land use designation in the urban area, open space is intended for outdoor recreation, parks, public spaces, things that need to have a designated land use but are not anticipated to be covered by structures, asphalt paving, or otherwise. There's a variety of land uses that are permitted in them, but the intent is to make sure that they do not, they're not a built-up area.
Just building on that, can I ask, I don't see a lot of designation for parks / open space. So for, the anticipated intensification in parts of the urban serviced area, notwithstanding the intensification overlay, but just residential intensification more generally, I find it interesting, but maybe you can clarify what I'm seeing. I only see 2 blocks for parks open space. Am I missing something? So I think I see a little bit near the campus, or maybe opposite of the campus, or maybe that's Riverside Park I'm looking at. And then I see a small allocation near Maley and 43, which is, so maybe someone can walk me through that. Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the question. So the designation mapping that you see, the 2 areas highlighted are Riverside Park, and up at 43 and Maley, that's the cemetery. That's designated as open space. In regards to, I know there doesn't appear to be a ton designated, as we do have a bunch of community parks. We think that there's the park in Aquanel, the Heron's Nest Park that was created outside Tempo. Our policies within the residential area are also supportive of parks and being integrated. And as we have new plans of subdivisions that do come online and create park land, we don't necessarily designate them as open space, but we do have policies within the residential land use designation that would encourage their establishment. The mapping here, it's a historical carryover as well from the existing official plans mapping. These are larger community parks, community spaces that are designated as open space. And I know we have, if that's council's desire, as we have them come online too, we could also look at the parks that we do own currently and putting them to an open space designation as well, just so that you can visually see them on the map. That could be something for consideration.
Just thank you. And I think that might be really helpful. But the other question I would have is, we are often, my understanding is that often developers aren't that inclined to build parks unless it's been sort of clearly stipulated they need to do so. I know we've revisited the cash in lieu of parkland more recently to ensure and stimulate and empower our planning team, including yourself, to insist on parks. So I guess my question would be, is this mapping robust enough to ensure that a park isn't a negotiable item when it comes to a particular development? I know the provision of park land is a stipulation by the province and obviously would be recognized by the development community as an important consideration, but I think what we've seen historically, not necessarily under your watch, Director Martin, is that those parks often don't materialize. So maybe you can help me understand, this iteration of the official plan, will it give us more leverage?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. What I'll recommend that we do, because I would, without reading the specific policies, is that we'll flag reviewing our parkland policies within the official plan because there's a specific session related to it. And as well as within our urban residential policies in regards to new development creation, over the desire that parkland is the preferred method versus cash and lieu. From a mapping perspective, I'd be really hesitant on our vacant parcels to specifically say this is where the park is going to be. I think what I would recommend is we could look at policies added in that as new developments are approved, that there's an automatic trigger that we can amend the official plan to add those lands in as open space without having to go through a large process. Again, just to visually identify and protect them. Certainly at the staff level, we are, well aware of council's desire to see the creation of more parks in new communities that are being proposed. And those are the conversations that we're having with developers, is that there needs to be consideration of parkland. And sometimes it might be may not be the full 5% of land. There might be a combination of land and cash in lieu that helps establish the park as well. But those are all things that council has the authority recommending draft conditions to the counties that you're able to help guide the course of those conversations as well. So we will go back and look at the policies to see if there's some perhaps maybe stronger language that we could add in or enhance within the official plan, just to make that maybe a little more prominent, and maybe a mechanism where we could look at when a new development comes online, that when we do receive the park, because it does become municipal property, there's just a mechanism where we can update the schedule to open space.
Thank you. I think certainly, not speaking on behalf of council, but knowing council as I do, I think there is an appetite to see if we can strengthen our policies. So developers, for the most part, are clear in their understanding of the importance we place on parks. I've seen in other communities where developments come, in some cases, the park is built first. So the park is apart from the basic infrastructure, underground, what have you, the park is sort of the anchor, and the houses are built around the park. But the park becomes one of the first neighborhood amenities that's built as part of a more residentially intense subdivision. It's not at the back end, or it's not at the cost of the municipality, because, for whatever reason, it didn't get entrenched in the early stages of planning. So I think, from my perspective, that seems like a compelling way to ensure that the municipality isn't necessarily left with the cost of building parks retroactively. And we know how hard you and your team worked, Ms. Martin, on securing some lands for the Heron's Nest Park that was ultimately built after residents, quite rightly, expressed their dissatisfaction with not having a park in relative close proximity. So I don't know if you have any other comments on that.
I have one quick comment. I just want to acknowledge that Mr. Bax also has something to add to our fulsome conversation. I just didn't know if he saw his hand go up.
I did not.
But what I do want to add is that under a separate process, which is ongoing with the municipality, which is the development charges background study, we also are looking at updating our local service policy area, which would set the requirements as to when a developer comes forward, what are the requirements for parkland. Right now, our policy is quite limited, but we are working with our senior leadership team and Watson Consulting, who's doing our development charges background study, to identify what would that standard be. So it's not just you're just giving us the land. It has to be how much development, or what's the development standard that the municipality expects a developer coming in for parks as part of their development, setting that threshold. That is all subject to council approval, of course. But I just wanted to identify that there is another mechanism in which we can set that bar.
I do appreciate that. And I apologize, I missed your hand. Go ahead.
No problem. I wanted to offer an element of assurance and comfort to council in regards to the conversation around parkland. So indeed, the Planning Act in Ontario enables municipalities to require parkland dedication. That's the function of the legislation. It enables municipalities to do so. the conversation we've been having thus far on the official plan is a policy framework that acknowledges that obligation and enshrines it in policy. And then the piece that I wanted to offer as the point of assurance and comfort is that through the passing of a bylaw for parkland dedication, the municipality then has the regulatory authority to enforce the requirement for parks to be provided. And that's the piece that I believe you already have, and you just want to make sure that you're going to use that tool consistently going forward. And with the benefit of maybe an adjustment in policy that we've been talking about, where there's a desire to ensure that you get the park versus the cash, you're going to be able to shape the community that you want in the years to come.
And thank you very much. And I know you have a history with North Grenville, so your memory probably looms large on some of these things. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying there's already a bylaw to the effect of ensuring that we recognize parkland over cash in lieu. Did I hear you correctly, or is...
The bylaw gives you the regulatory authority to take either the land or the cash,
Right.
and then how you choose to do so is a matter of practice.
Right.
And that practice can be guided by the policy that we put into the official plan in this interval of the official plan update.
Right. Okay, thank you. One other thing that comes to mind for me, and Councillor Sullivan would be asking this question if she was here. So we, for a number of years now, have talked about buffering, right, between residential developments, whether it's another residential development next door or a commercial development. So as you might appreciate, if you're familiar with our community, there's a commercial development now alongside the rail trail, going sort of through the heart of town. And there were multiple questions raised about whether or not there could be a legal mechanism through the official plan or another opportunity to ensure that there was a buffering between land uses. Similarly, when we look at development in Equinel, there has been a strongly expressed desire, certainly on the part of Councillor Sullivan, if not others, to also ensure that developers do respect a buffering that is perhaps beyond what our current official plan provides. So that, you know, the experience of being on a rural trail that is cherished and coveted in the community isn't wholly compromised because you have development right up to, you know, that part of the trail. So I heard no mention of those things in this official plan document. My understanding is your official plan is your most powerful mechanism to ensure enforcement of some things that would be more particular to your community versus another community and don't necessarily have the benefit of a provincial policy statement as the legislative framework. So can you speak to those buffering elements that I know have been a discussion point at the council table?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. So for the official plan, as it relates to the land use designations, it will determine what is appropriate. The regulatory tool to enforce those buffers would be in your zoning bylaw, which would then be updated following the official plan adoption and approval. But within that zoning bylaw, that is where your rules will sit, where you can have the provisions in the zoning that says if you have a commercial land use that is within a certain number of area or a certain number of meters or is adjacent to a residential or sensitive land use, the zoning which controls the like the site and the form, that is where you would then put the rules in there that say screening, buffering, a setback of this distance from those uses. So while the official plan policies can look at what is considered appropriate in areas, that tool would be under a separate document.
So then maybe I can ask Ms. Martin, given that I think we've been eagerly awaiting the official plan to try to better understand how to activate some of these mechanisms, so is it a general zoning bylaw provision that would entrench that requirement without mention of it in the official plan? Maybe Ms. Martin, you can speak to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do want to highlight that the official plan does have high-level policies in relation to compatibility, screening measures, and buffering. It's not a document that you want to entrench hard and fast rules within, because then you have to go back and amend your official plan for every special circumstance that can't meet the provision. It is the zoning bylaw. It would be a general provision built in. We already have general buffering and screening requirements for commercial uses to sensitive land uses, so residential or certain types of institutional uses. But the bylaw currently does not speak to screening and buffering requirements from a residential use to a residential use, or from a residential use to an institutional use such as a trail. And in fact, in certain circumstances, a trail might not necessarily have an institutional zoning to it. It might just mirror the zoning within the area. So it might just have like potentially maybe an open space zoning, or it might just have a residential zoning because that's just the common zoning of the area itself. Doesn't mean it's going to be used for residential purposes, but that's where you would provide that mechanism. It would be a general provision similar to our buffering requirements for commercial industrial uses.
And so to that end, have I heard you correctly to say that following this official plan, there would be zoning bylaw updates to entrench some of these mechanisms so that you have the power, right, as you're negotiating with a variety of developers to impose some of those buffering considerations?
Thank you, Your Worship. So it depends on the nature of what we're talking about. In most cases, the zoning update is to the schedules to ensure that the zoning schedules mirror and match the official plan schedules. Specifically, as it comes to text, that would be something that if there are recommendations or changes. I think of some of the recent changes that have happened through various bills of the province that reduced the setback requirements from our provincially significant wetlands, which we did update our official plan to do. We would see those changes, but not necessarily going through and adding in a variety of provisions unless otherwise directed by council. Understanding that there's a notice of motion related to the buffering aspect itself, that wouldn't necessarily be something that would flow out of the official plan update, but it would be it's something directed by council as a special interest to look at. So the update mostly would be to the schedules just to ensure that the parcels align with the updated land use designation maps of the official plan. Would then be reflected the same as the zoning. So when we were earlier talking about those industrial lands going to the economic enterprise and employment land area zoning changes, you would see those come forward in the housekeeping amendment to our zoning bylaw.
Okay, I appreciate that. I have some additional questions, but I certainly don't want to forfeit the opportunity for members of our community to speak. So council colleagues, not seeing anything on this side of the house. So I'll acknowledge Deputy Mayor one more time, and then maybe we can open it up.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry. Yeah, just a minor point. Once again, the downtown core outline and the downtown commercial outline are dissimilar. I'm just wondering why the extension of the downtown core along Van Buren is not part of the downtown commercial, or vice versa. There's a heavy outline for, what is it? Yeah, so downtown commercials is greater than the downtown core.
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, thank you for that, bringing that to my attention. That may have been a mapping update oversight, and we will review. I believe that part of that will rely on the BIA expansion results and how that may affect that being shown on the maps as well. Should that expansion go through, be ratified and approved, we can adjust that boundary to reflect that. The downtown commercial was expanded along to the east in order to reflect that we are seeing already some commercial businesses in that area that weren't in line with the previous land use. So it's been updated to reflect that. But the boundary can be expanded to capture those should council deem it appropriate. I have made note of that, and we will look at that in our revisions. Thank you.
So with that, council colleagues, we will open it up to members of our community. And of course, before we close it this evening, if there were any burning questions, I'm sure that they can be recognized a little bit later in the agenda. So I'm looking to those who are here this evening. Are there members who wish to speak from the public? Okay, great. So I'm just, Ms. Boss, I think, is going to have our consulting team relocate, and you're more than welcome to come down and address the mic. So if anyone's wishing to speak to council, now is your chance. And I'm just, as you're coming down, I'm going to ask Ms. Boss, has anyone indicated online that they also wish to speak? Yes. Ms. Boss? We have one. Okay. Welcome. Yes, of course. Okay, thanks. And welcome, Ms. Tyler. And if you could just state your name for the record, that would be most appreciated. Oh, and you just need to press the red button.
My name is Lynn Tyler, and I'm a resident of North Grenville, and I also happen to be a member of Friends of Ferguson Forest Centre. And thank you, first of all, Your Worship, council members, appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. I'll be very brief. We have sent a little letter around, which I hope most of you have seen, speaking most specifically to the Ferguson Forest lands, which are potentially designated in the intensification overlay. And we have serious concerns about that. Certainly, I would recognize the need for intensification as the community grows. You do, as was said, want to grow up rather than out. We want to protect farmland, wetlands, forest, etc. I think that is important, but you have many options about where and how that takes place. And we just really don't think that Ferguson Forest lands are a good choice for a number of reasons. One of the really key factors as the community grows is the quality of life. And green space is a key element. It's not the only one, certainly, but it's an extremely important one. And we are so lucky to have Ferguson Forest in our community, right in the middle of our community. I just think it's one of your sacred duties as a council to protect and enhance the Ferguson Forest lands. And I think it was you, Your Worship, who pointed out that as the population grows and the intensification happens, this will become even more important to protect this green space. I believe it was the Director of Planning who referred to the fact that as specific developments are considered or brought forward, that you will refer to and be guided by the policy or principles in the official plan. And if I understand the consultant's presentation correctly, and I remember that page correctly, it does not refer, astonishingly, does not refer to preserving green space. And it should. That should be one of the principles that you have that guide you. It is an important part of the quality of life. It's key for climate change, for cleaning the air, the water, and just for enjoying being here as a resident of North Grenville. So I would really encourage you to do that. There are a million other things I could say, but I think I'll leave it at that. And thank you for your attention to it.
We are very blessed. There is no doubt. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, thanks. Come on down. Oh, am I missing someone? Oh, Ms. Martin, yes, please.
Just as we're waiting for, and thank you, Your Worship, for people to come down. Please do come down
Yeah.
still. I just want to note that any comments that are submitted online in writing to our op@northgrenville.on.ca, everything is provided to the consultants and will be consolidated for council's benefit as part of this review process. So even if you might not want to provide comment verbally tonight, we will be circulating and providing all of the comments to the consultants that you sent to staff as well as to council. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Lynn Pibamase. I'm a resident of North Grenville living on Whitney Road. Your Worship, Deputy Mayor and councillors, I just wish to add to what Lynn Tyler has said about the intensification overlay. It is zoned agriculture, as has been pointed out. Under Section 3 Land Use Policies Agriculture, it does state that the municipality recognizes the contribution of the agricultural industry and land resource to North Grenville's economy, heritage, and quality of life, and will strive to protect this valuable resource. It also says it shall be a goal of the municipality of North Grenville to conserve agricultural land. So it is North Grenville's responsibility to protect that part of the Ferguson Forest Centre as agricultural land. just wanted to add that point. I have another concern about the natural heritage. So, oops, I think I've missed my page here. It is to do with the provincially significant wetlands. Right now, it says under section 6.2.11, the general policies, D, development within 30 meters of provincially or locally significant wetlands may take place in accordance with the land use designation. Now, Whitney Road goes right through a provincially significant wetland. It was made a provincially significant wetland because of two reasons: the arrowwood tree and Blanding's turtles. Now, as time went on, they decided the arrowwood tree, it's just in the northern limit of its, where it grows, so it's not that important, but the Blanding's turtle has now become a threatened species, so it is on the species at risk list. And when you look at section 6.2.3, item C, under species at risk, development applications which affect lands within 120 meters of such habitat must demonstrate by means of an environmental impact study carried out in accordance with the policy of section 6.8 and so on. So I'm kind of confused with this, where the provincially significant wetland, which houses the species at risk, has only 30 meters, but here it's saying that it's supposed to be 120 meters for the species at risk. So I think we need to have that kind of fixed. I don't know about the other provincially significant wetlands in North Granville, but more than likely they do have species at risk in them. So I think the official plan should say 120 meters for the provincially significant wetlands. That's the point that I just wanted to make.
Ms. Reddy or Ms. Martin, do you have any comments on that at this stage?
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you for the note regarding the setbacks. I do want to confirm that when it comes to the 30 meters or the 120 meters, the further distance will prevail. That is the policy that would take precedence over that. The 30 meters for provincially significant wetlands would apply if there's a provincially significant wetland without that species at risk. But should one of those wetlands have one of those SAR species within there, the 120 meters is the setback requirement that does affect that. So there are two policies that kind of coexist side by side, where the 30 meters is for all of them and the 120s leapfrogs over top should we find that it needs those additional protections.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, welcome. Thank you. And just a name for the public record. Thanks so much.
Hi there, my name is Liz Gomes. I work for the federal government as well, and I'll explain a bit about who I am to provide some context. So I purchased a abandoned farm just outside of Oxford Station. And the reason I bring that up is because we are looking for ways to generate capital to actually get the farm back into operation. So I mentioned that because I'd like to talk a little bit about the residential strips. But I'll back up for a second. So I should say I work for Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. I'm a grad from University of Guelph, so agriculture is my area of expertise. The reason why I bring up the residential strips is that there's a big difference between farming in Ontario and farming out west, where you have huge tracts of land and you can take advantage of very slim margins that exist. It's harder in Ontario. So you're having always to find more unique ways to remain competitive. So when I was here on Monday for the, I guess the growth, planned growth, but I hadn't read the actual draft OP yet. But what I found interesting was, is there room for some sort of compromise? Because when I look at it, agriculture land and rural land, you can't have any sort of subdivision, and you're sort of limited on severances and whatnot. So clearly, I'm not in favor of turning farmland into like massive subdivisions. I also grew up in southwestern Ontario. I saw that happen a lot around me, and my dad could have told me stories as well of great land that was covered in shopping malls and subdivisions. But is there a compromise between that where you could allow more of these residential strips to allow farmers to have, I guess, more financial leverage? Because I think there's somewhere in the middle. You know, like I said, I don't want to see 120 acres turned into a subdivision. I'm not saying that, far from it. I've seen that too much. But, you know, I had this conversation with my husband. My husband was of the mindset of, no, we need to buy more land. What are you talking about, woman? You're crazy. But I kind of said, well, listen here, we have 172 acres and zero money to start a farm, or we could have 160 acres and $1 million because we put 3 properties up front, and then we can actually start our dream. So I just want to maybe say that to you folks here, because I think there could be a compromise there. It doesn't have to be like 100% or zero. There could be somewhere in the middle where you can allow a bit of that. And then I'm new to the area. I've only been here for 5 years, and the comments that I see a lot on the Facebook groups are people complaining about how Kemptville is losing that small town feel. And I get that. And that's like why I love it here. We absolutely love it here. But maybe there can be a way to also encourage some of that residential growth outside of Kemptville, not just, you know, not just in the areas you have sort of marked as rural residential, but can we maybe encourage some of that growth in those agricultural areas? I don't know that it necessarily takes away from that if you're limiting the number of properties in a row. Like I think your strip development now says like, you know, basically no more than 3, right? That's fine. But can you find that compromise where you can allow some more development in those outskirts, and as well as allowing some mixed use in those areas as well? Because the harsh reality is you kind of have to be middle class to afford to live outside in a rural area, right? Because if you don't have a car that's reliable, you're not getting anywhere, right? If you're low income, you're having to live in town where there's public services you can walk to on a bus. But there are people who do want to have that country life, who maybe grew up on a farm and can live in that sort of area, but maybe they can't afford a house. Maybe it would be nice for them to have an apartment. And I know your ADUs allow for that. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I think there's maybe some compromise to allow folks like myself, because I know I'm not going to be the only one. Right now, the policy seems to assume that you have a well-functioning, profitable farm and you don't want to lose any of your land. But that may not be everyone's situation. And quite frankly, as agriculture gets more intensive and harder to make money, there are going to be farmers that are going to be like, you know what, I need a capital boost to invest. And if I could just sell off like 3 acres up front, it means nothing to me when I've got the balance of 100 plus, but that's interest-free money that I can invest into my business. So I heard everybody loud and clear. We don't want to have ag land disappearing. I get that. And I like that you have rezoned a lot of that rural land back to ag. That's great. We've done that on our property, but I was able to convince Elaine to leave 18 acres up front as rural so that I could do something with it. But I think there's opportunity for others to do something similar. So anyways, those are I have very specific comments, but I'll bug Amy afterwards about what's in there. But I just wanted to make those comments to the broader council. Thanks. Oh, and this is my daughter, Juliana, who will be upset with me if I don't introduce her.
Hi, Juliana. We're so happy you're here. We have some snacks in the side room for later.
Asking about snacks earlier.
Yeah,
She
we
was
have
very
lots of
upset that there
snacks.
weren't any.
Okay.
Anyways, thank you.
Okay, if you stick around for 15 minutes, we'll make sure she gets snacks. Thank you, Juliana. We're thrilled you're here. Ms. Martin or Ms. Reddy, do you have any comments on how we facilitate rural residential development on rural and ag properties? I know we went through a fairly exhausting LEAR process, agricultural area mapping exercise to the counties where this discussion also emerged. So I recognize that the trend is highly intense urban densification. And I do think as a council, we're interested to better understand how rural residential development is facilitated to some extent.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will provide a response, and if Ms. Reddy has something else additional to add, I'm sure she will. I think that Ms. Gomes provided very detailed comments that provide a different perspective to rural lot land development. I don't think I'm at this point prepared to speak to how the proposed changes may or may not address what was raised, but perhaps as part of the comments that are provided this evening, as we are taking notes, when we do come back to council with a more fulsome report, we can address maybe some of those specific items. We will flag the comments from Ms. Gomes just in a meaningful way as to how can we do our best to facilitate that. I hear arguments on both sides of opening up our residential severance policies in the rural area versus not, and how do we try to find that balanced approach. I will flag that with the consultants as an item that we'll provide some further review around and some public comment in regards to our rural severance policies.
I think we had always indicated that we would be looking at rural severance policies as part of this official plan process. And it's certainly been the case that over the past few months, it has emerged in the context of the agricultural area mapping where we, funnily enough, we heard from a lot of farmers who had a vested interest in that's kind of hybrid use to some extent of both having that opportunity to farm ag zone lands, but also preserve some rural zoning to give them more flexibility. So definitely I think more conversation. So appreciate your reflections on that. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak? Okay. So we have two, do I see three? Okay. I want to make sure Juliana gets her snack. So maybe I can direct Juliana to this room. So you come down and we'll make sure. We always want kids to feel like they had a great time at a municipal council meeting. So when they grow up, they'll aspire to be counselors too. So who's going to come down first and address the audience? I saw two hands, if I'm not mistaken. So feel free to come on down. Thank you. And Mr. Stevenson, just for the record, thanks, just your name for our clerk.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name's Don Stevenson. I live in Kennedy Road in North Grenville. Sorry, I live on Kennedy Road. Thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to I'll have more fulsome comments that I'll write in the future. But piggybacking on the last speaker, I've always had this feeling. I read official plans and they say, we need to encourage development. We need a variety of development. And then I look at my opportunity to get a rural severance and I say, well, no, you're not encouraging that at all. And I think I look at the population of Eastern Ontario and 90% of the people want to live in Ottawa and 10% want to live in the more rural area. And of that, of those people, 90% of them want to live in our towns and villages, and 10% want to live like me on a dusty side road. I now have asphalt, so I can't call it dusty. And so I think we need to, the current official plan has some language to permit some rural severances, but staff certainly aren't interpreting it with the level of importance that I think the provincial policy statement asks for, and or the residents probably desire. So I really do encourage you to look at some creative adjustments to the wording to help ensure that some rural severances are still permitted to provide the variety of housing choices that people want. Ironically, I can take my property and I can build 2 more dwellings. But sometimes there's reasons that we might want a separate deed, whether it's to get bank financing, whether it's to protect from one of my children living there and having a messy divorce, or whatever reason. I think logistically it just makes sense sometimes. The other comment on the same notion and relative, whether it's agriculture or rural, when you're talking about severances, the requirement for a minimum size of a hectare is frankly dumb. It's a waste of space. I lived on properties that are half an acre. I've lived on properties that are 2 acres, and I've lived on larger properties. And a hectare is a dumb size. It's too small to have a horse, and it's too big to maintain. So when we are talking about rural development, a way to waste less farmland would be to encourage smaller parcels that are still fit the character of the neighborhood. So that's my opinion on some rural severance portion of the official plan.
Can I just clarify so I understand you correctly? A severance is not possible to be contemplated unless you have a minimum of 1 hectare. Is that what you were suggesting?
That's what I'm
Yes.
suggesting based on the current official plan. I haven't read your proposed
Okay.
official plan.
Okay, great, thanks. Anything else? I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was all for tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Martin, might I ask that 1 hectare, I guess, minimum to contemplate a severance, is that an embedded policy in the official plan?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. I would like to clarify. So yes, it is a policy within the official plan. In the rural designation for lot creation, we have a minimum size of 1 hectare. Where we don't have that minimum in the rural area would be in the agricultural designation. The policies state that you would more so very limited in which types of severances you can get in an agricultural designation, but it's typically limited to the minimal land that you need to support the surplus dwelling severance that you're taking off. So that I just want to make that distinction that it's only in the rural designation that you see that 1 hectare minimum requirement embedded within the official plan currently.
Just a quick follow-up, as we think about rural development, and we appreciate that you'll bring back some additional information, that 1 hectare isn't at the behest of the province. There's local latitude for how we contemplate minimum lot sizes within rurally zoned areas.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, it is a local policy. It's not entrenched within the provincial planning statement, nor is it entrenched currently in the county's official plan. However, it is a recommendation coming from their consultants on the growth management study to set some parameters on minimum lot sizes for rural severances, but it's currently a North Granville policy that implements that.
What's the rationale behind that policy? Could you speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can speak maybe in more generalities, as I wasn't here back when that policy was put in place. Typically, the larger lot size is to try and maintain more of a rural character by having that larger lot size to meet minimum frontage requirements, so you don't have kind of that kind of rural intensification that we see along some roads where you have a lot of residential strip development. And it's also to ensure that you can accommodate your house, your well and your septic. And especially now that we have more permissive policies for additional residential units, in certain circumstances, we're seeing requests for 2 septics for a property to support that additional residential unit. So having a larger lot size does accommodate that.
Okay, thank you. I know there's another speaker or two wishing to, okay, thank you. So we have Mr. Herring, and was there another hand? I just don't want to miss anyone. Oh, Mr. Graham. Okay, thank you. Okay. And I know we have someone patiently online. Are they okay to continue to wait, or should we recognize them sooner rather than later, Ms. Boss? Okay, okay, perfect. Thank you. We don't want to disadvantage our virtual participants. Mr. Herring, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, for this opportunity. I just wanted to speak to the issue of the proposed change to the strip north of 43 on the Ferguson Tree Nursery space. I'm president of the Ferguson Forest Center Corporation, and our board has deliberated on this and made decisions in the past concerning the activity, the impact on that strip. This is not an area that impacts on our recreational properties at all. And it has now become virtually unusable for us because of the growth of 43 and the impact, the lighting, the salt. I mean, there's so many things that impact on that strip of land. It is a major corridor in and out of Kemptville now. So for us, for our board, we support the designation change on that it allow some flexibility for the municipality to deal with it. I mean, it's part of our leased land, but it's not at this point, and I can't see it in the future, usable nursery property in the future, and has no impact on our forest land, our recreational offerings to the community in any way. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Mr. Graham. Oh, you're absolutely. Please come down. Doesn't wish to speak. That's Chris. That's Chris. Welcome, Ms. Turnbull. Thank you.
Thank you, Council and Your Worship and Dylan. It's wonderful. Didn't bring my glasses, so I'm going to be peering at my chicken scratches. No, it's good. Thank you. Okay, some of my questions are procedural. So Amy, I think I'm going to need your help, but obviously feed in. First, I haven't read the new draft official plan. I'm really familiar with the old one. So my first question is, why 30 years? Are there review requirements for this particular one? That's a long time, and the county is currently doing theirs. So my next question would be, how are they aligned? Like, if we're going to get this much development potentially or growth, how do you manage an official plan in 30 years with what you're projecting?
I think we do have to defer to Ms. Martin in terms of the timeline. So
Okay.
I can certainly ask Ms. Martin to respond to that.
Perhaps we'll have the consultants respond to,
Of course.
to the framework and the vision and the timelines.
Okay, Ms. Reddy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So while the planning horizon is set for 30 years, or 25 years to 2051 from 2026, that timeline for how long we look forward to the future is set by the province. That's to ensure that, when we're goal setting, we're looking that far ahead. However, there are requirements to review and update or replace every 5 or 10 years. So you have to look at your official plan and update it every 5 or fully repeal and replace every 10. Part of that is looking at, to make a metaphor, like when you put a cake in the oven, even though it's 45 minutes, you usually check on it like, 10, 15, 20 minutes in just to make sure you're on the right path and do those adjustments. So while we're looking to 2051, we do expect that perhaps some of the goals will be met faster than we anticipate. Perhaps some of them will be met slower. And so because of that, we'll need to make some adjustments along the way. It's just that when we look to 2051, we need to make sure that we're thinking far enough ahead, saving up enough money to make sure we have the appropriate amount, size of infrastructure and roads, and so that the municipality can budget, staff, and prepare accordingly. That's not to say that what we have in date will not change between now and 2051. I'm sure there will be many more updates and many more changes as North Grenville continues to change and adjust the goals and vision along the way.
There you go. Got it. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, tech. Thanks. I expected maybe some changes along the way, but I just wanted to double check about horizons. Okay, so my other question is zoning versus designation. So we are tier 2, right? The county is first. So let's say with respect to the Ferguson Forest lands, under the new layer, I believe that little chunk is now rural lands. So in rural land world at county, does county designation come first over municipal zoning? Or is there some kind of negotiation? What happens?
I can answer that one, Your Worship. In regards to the layers of our policy documents, we must conform to the county's official plan. And I do recognize we didn't actually answer part of your first question, which is in regard to the county's official plan update.
Thanks.
And we do recognize that their schedule and timeline is not in sync with ours. So they're not happening simultaneously. They do happen sometimes years apart. When the counties update their official plan, we will then do a review to what their changes are, and then we must conform to their official plan. So at that time, we'd bring forth an amendment to our plan to align our schedules, which goes down to the layers piece in regards to the designation, where if the county changes the designation to rural, we in turn would match their designation, and then we would amend our zoning bylaw as that third layer to provide that matching cascade between the three. So the county's official plan is what helps establish our official plan layers. So where they designate a property as agriculture, we must do the same, and then we would zone it accordingly so that we're aligned between the three documents.
Okay, so the Ferguson Forest Center then would be rural lands or rural, currently under the layer. So your zoning would potentially in the future reflect that with what kind of zoning?
Through your worship, we would have to provide the consideration that we would have to match the county zoning. So there would be consideration to rezoning the lands to rural to match the county's official plan as we would amend our official plan schedules. I do want to highlight that the rural designation also allows for agricultural uses, although it does permit a more wide variety of types of uses where agricultural designation would be more limiting into what types of activities or permitted uses would be allowed.
Yeah, so under provincial policy 2024, you can put some settlements there, you can do that kind of stuff on rural zoning, rural designation.
Thank you for the question. In regards to the other piece of this is that a part of the FFC lands are located within the urban settlement area, which has its own policies, which is permissive of development. And there is a portion that is outside of that area that would have a rural designation that wouldn't allow for like the further subdivision of land, like for a plan of subdivision. If we take maybe the FFC out of it and we start talking about what are you allowed to do from a development perspective in a rural designation? It's, you wouldn't be allowed to do a rural plan of subdivision. You could have more rural serving commercial and industrial uses, low residential development, open spaces. Their whole rural designation has a bunch of policies. It's more characteristic of what you would see in a rural area. So to that end, I just wanted to provide the nuance that there is a portion of the lands that are in with the urban service the urban settlement area for the Chemfill boundary, that it could have different policies that come into play in the future based on where that line is drawn.
Okay, so yeah, it's 43 to Veterans Way, roughly, right? Over to the Giving Garden, maybe, like that. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that particular element because in areas within the municipality, within the urban zone that are or have been designated agricultural, the zoning historically has been something else, like the campus lands are institutional, right? So that does not match. So I wanted to confirm when something doesn't match because of, excuse me, historical use, will that be looked at within this new official plan? So in that right now, for example, the campus is rural lands, but the zoning is institutional because there are educational blah, blah, blahs on it, which is historical, but there might be other ones that pop up in some future. So I just wanted to kind of raise that question.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So in certain circumstances, we do have those areas that have historical uses where we don't necessarily change the zoning because we don't want to be creating issues where we can't allow for that use to continue to persist. I do want to recognize that the campus is its own special area in itself and how it's evolved over time, as in that it was premised on an agricultural university where there was a lot of research and development around that. And it has kind of evolved into what it is today. And I do recognize that maybe perhaps from an official plan perspective, we should be looking at specific special policies for how the campus evolves. Going back to the zoning end of things is that while I do recognize that the zoning is at a sync with the underlying designation, there is a bit of discretion at the municipal level in being able to have a bit of that because institutional uses are recognized as being a use that you can have within the rural designation as well. It doesn't necessarily have to follow specifically and be rural. There are, we have some rural or like locally servicing commercial uses zoned in the rural area, and it doesn't necessarily match per se the rural designation by name, but it still follows the virtues of the policies of the official plan itself. So when we review an application and that comes in and we might put a commercial zoning in a rural property, we're evaluating it against the rural designation policies for those uses. And while the zoning might look like it doesn't align, the overall development does meet the intent of the policy. It gets a special zoning class, so you can see that there's a differentiation there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so permissive zoning, sorry, I'm going to just a couple more questions. Permissive zoning. So January-ish, middle, your draft thing was up online under a special meeting. So I took a boo at it. What does permissive zoning mean? What is that? Permissive zoning.
Thank you very much for that question, and through the chair, I'm pleased to answer. It's one of those little pieces of planning jargon that pops up from time to time, and I'm glad that you asked so I can help decode it into regular English. Zoning is a tool, it's a regulatory tool by a municipality, and it does two things, basically. It says you can do certain things in terms of land use, and it says you cannot. So when we talk about permissive land use and permissive zoning, we talk about a zoning framework that is broad and allows you to do a wide variety of things within various zoning categories, as opposed to a restrictive zoning approach, which says, here's a series of zoning categories we're going to use in our municipality, and you can only do a very narrow band of things in each of those zoning categories. So that's what permissive means. It's when we look to use zoning, we look to encourage a variety of different development within the zoning categories that are created in that bylaw.
Okay, thank you. So can you give me an example for here? Where would be an example that maybe you have a zoning, I don't know, like residential, no, what would be a good zoning? Industrial, let's say, whatever, commercial, what would be permissive? Like what does that, because for a public, like you'd need to have some kind of understanding what the framework of whatever the zoning is, residential, agricultural, whatever. Where does permissive come into play when a public is expecting a certain parameter?
Again, through the chair, I'm happy to answer that other question. I think I can answer it better by giving an example in the way that zoning was approached by planning practitioners historically versus the way that we're doing it now. So historically, for example, a planner working in a municipality may have created 3 commercial zones to use across the municipality. And one of them would allow for barbershops, hair salons, a few other things, and would only be applied in a few specific places such that those activities could only happen there. And then that planner would have created another zone for things like perhaps restaurants, cafes, bakeries. And then that zone would only be applied in a few places such that only those things could happen there. Well, what if somebody came along and had operated a restaurant for a long time, and then they were going to retire, and none of the kids wanted to take over the restaurant? So they put it up for sale, and someone buys it and says, you know what, this is a great place to actually have a nail salon. And they go to the municipality, and the municipality says, well, you need to get a rezoning because we're very restricted on our zoning, and you can only have a restaurant or a cafe. We actually have to rezone you to C1, and that's going to cost a few $100 or a few $1,000, and it might take you 2 to 3 months. And the poor person that wanted to start a nail salon is like, wow, how difficult is it here to do business? And so that's like the historical example. So permissive zoning would say, here's a commercial zoning, and within the commercial zoning, you can have restaurants, nail salons, barbershops, cafes, and a whole bunch of other things that are all basically great businesses that bring prosperity to our community. And we want all those businesses to be kind of clustered together so they can synergize with each other. And that's the kind of concept of permissive zoning and the way that we as planning practitioners are moving towards with municipalities.
Okay,
You're welcome.
good example, made me laugh.
Thank you.
Okay, and the final thing is comments. As people are giving you guys comments, bringing them in, how are you compiling, collating, dealing with the data? How are you doing that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we are accepting comments through the official plan dedicated email address that's on the project site. That email is forwarded to the project team, so that's Amy, myself, and a couple other planners on it. Internally, we are tracking them in what we call a comment response matrix. So we log the comments, the date that we received them, who they're from, a summary of the comment, and then as well if there's any specific requests. Sometimes it has to do with a specific area of land. Sometimes it has to do with a specific policy. Then as a team, we look at them and determine the action to be taken. Sometimes there's no action and it's simply someone asking a question and the action is reply with an email. Sometimes the action is to revise a policy or redraw a boundary on the map. We keep tabs of all of those internally and then mark them off when we're done. And that summary of how we've responded to comments will be provided when we go through the approvals process. So when we come back to council and are presenting the official plan, one of the supplemental materials with that will be that summary of here is what we've heard and how we've responded, how it's been reflected in the plan. So we log things dutifully because we know that there's a lot of interest and we get a variety of comments. I want to make sure that folks not only feel like they're heard, but are actually heard and see those reflected in the documents and materials.
Okay, thanks. Finally, I guess, the Ferguson Forest Center, that particular buffer, while it might be terrible for agriculture because of salt and whatever, are there other uses that could be employed for that space, such as tree canopies, et cetera, especially if the 43 is going to be developed, as seems to be the direction for the municipality. So these small buffer zones can be grown with other botanicals in some form or another that will adapt to salt or whatever might be needed to make the soil okay again. So, but thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we have Mr. Graham wanting, I think, to speak. And is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this time? Because if not, I think we're going to accept Mr. Graham's comment as the last comment. I understand from his boss that there is no one online wishing to speak. There are... Well, Ms. Boss has been managing the Zoom. Did we forfeit an opportunity to hear from a resident? Okay. So obviously we wanted to make sure that all residents were heard. So I was leaving it up to Ms. Boss to make sure that we prioritized any online contributions. Mr. Graham, thank you for being here and you get the last word.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council and consultants for being here and for giving this opportunity to speak. This is, I don't know, probably the third or fourth official plan process since my time living in, my name is Tom Graham. Sorry, I live in Bishops Mills, rural area, Sector 12, the southwest quadrant of the nether reaches of the municipality. mostly swampland. But I wanted to make 3 points, 2 of which have already been spoken to, in some cases extensively tonight. And I thought, well, I don't have to mention that, except I think I'd like to add my voice as if to echo them or to emphasize the fact that these are important. One of which, I also should preface this by saying, I have, as most of you know, I have made submission on the official plan process. So I haven't studied the new official plan to see whether some of the submission comments that we made have been incorporated. Perhaps they have, perhaps they haven't. But in the overview tonight, I didn't detect some of them in the wording that was submitted. I also represent a group called Sustainable North Grenville, a group of community members who are actively interested in preserving the environment and quality of life in North Grenville. So we made presentations on behalf of Sustainable North Grenville in October and December in the past 6 months. And some of those were mentioned, and including, I think, the buffers. Interested to see some of those things on protecting, maintaining local food interests. But interesting, until one of the audience members spoke, the actual language from our planning department and consulting department did not use the word green spaces in terms of, they mentioned public spaces and, or open spaces, I should say, is the term that's used. And it was only after one of the other speakers said the word green spaces. And so I think it's really adamant, what are we doing? Where are we mentioning protection of green spaces? And in fact, Your Worship, in fact, you echoed that yourself in some of your comments, saying, well, what are we doing about green spaces? So thank you for that. But I did notice it was absent in the presentation, as I mentioned, of saying this is what we're all about. So I'll echo that comment. Leading to that, things like the FFC lands being changed to, or the idea of developing that land along 43, which is either every developer's dream, every politician's dream, not every politician exclusive, past former politician's dream of developing that. And I wanted to say, as a resident, I'm not a developer, and I do shop in Kemptville extensively. My kids went to school at St. Mike's. You know, I'm very familiar with that corridor. The easiest frickin' thing to do is turn it into commercial space. That is the absolute mindless, simplest thing to do. It's so obvious that's a natural choice for it. But that is hardly visionary. That is absolutely the farthest thing from visionary, which this council, I think, likes to think that it has made some effort to make some steps towards, although we know there are people that might say otherwise. But that's like, so if you're thinking of protecting land, as the last speaker, as Chris spoke at the last speaker, saying, are there other lands? If the Ferguson people can't use it, the public thinks that's public space. The public, this community thinks that's public space. Visitors think it's like our experimental farm. So sure, if you need some money, and if you want to comply with the province, which I know we're obliged to some extent, comply with the province's rules, development is obvious. That will be very easy to do. It's a no-brainer. But this council has brains. So I think that we should maybe move in the more visionary direction and think of something to do with that public space. Put the development elsewhere. Use the main corridor as a conduit to demonstrate our public green space. Which brings me to my final point, that I didn't get a chance to really study the thing, and I know it may be in there, and I have hoping to talk further with Director Martin or perhaps the consultant about the what are we doing to protect water quality, especially in the rural area. And the presentations that have made both by myself and by our group, Sustainable North Grenville, have said there's a number of issues with regard to aggregate mapping in the bedrock extraction zones, in bedrock inventory identified rather randomly in the past, were hoped to be addressed or removed. We urge the removal of these things because they're in sensitive areas, in areas where the rural residents have to suck their drinking water right out of the rock. Would not be a good idea to have a quarry operating next door. And I understand that there are perhaps some changes to the mapping and the designation, but I have not, in a broader sense, the words protecting water quality are not so far in the presentation, or at least if they are, I missed that. So those are my comments, Madam Mayor, and I hope that I'll get a chance to review it in detail. I hope specifically that some of those concerns can be addressed. I'm happy to clarify if you need me to go on and on and on.
I just want to ask that I know you're reminding me that you brought to our attention concerns about aggregate mapping. And I know there was a suggestion that we would proceed with the aggregate mapping as has been previously proposed here in North Grenville, but you had a alternative view of modifying that aggregate mapping, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe to you and then subsequently to Ms. Martin. I don't know if the official plan speaks to the aggregate mapping in and of itself, or is that a separate process?
I don't know.
Okay. Ms. Martin?
I will defer to Ms. Reddy, who's been looking at this matter.
Through the chair, thank you, Tom, and I appreciate your comments. I know we've spoken at past consultation events. With regards to the term green space in the official plan, while it is mentioned a couple times, it comes mostly down to a matter of semantics in the official plan, where we refer to it as open space. We have defined terms within the official plan where like open space, it'll say in the definition, open space refers to natural heritage areas, green spaces publicly or privately owned, parks, etc. So while the term green space may not appear as many times as open space, it's not without thought in the official plan. It's just captured under a different name. And then as well, I do recall our conversation regarding mineral aggregates, and it is something that both myself and Mr. Baksh and the town took a look into. Some of those sites are regulated by the ministry. It is a provincial matter as far as the identification. We did review mineral aggregate policies to include some strengthening for should sites be used for mineral aggregate extraction. There are strong policies regarding rehabilitation, replantings, and ways to recuperate the natural areas within that. But when it comes to adjusting the mapping on those, it's something that the municipality is not enabled to do entirely on its own and requires coordination across multiple levels of government.
Oh, your mic, please.
That last comment didn't get recorded good. Thank you for your entirely unsatisfactory answer on the part about aggregates, because they were, the aggregate areas identified on our current OP were added without any scientific data specifically and were approved by the ministry. So now they're on, and it requires a team of scientists to take them off, but it didn't require a team of scientists to put them on. So there's an injustice that's happened there. They're not really, there's bedrock everywhere in Eastern Ontario. So the fact that you could put certain sites saying this is an ideal spot next to wetlands and next to development, next to people's wells is an injustice, basically. And I think that there's something that can be done. One might point out that the municipality takes its cue from the county. The county's aggregate master plan or aggregate study has been stalled at that time because they can't decide how to handle it. So it's not helpful at this point at all. So I look forward to talking further about this because I think action can be taken. And if it means going to another level, then get on it. As you're able. Sorry, as you're able.
And then, sorry, I'm going to recognize Mr. Baksh and then Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Through the chair, Tom, it's been a long time since I've seen you. It's good to see you tonight.
Hey, Mark.
You landed exactly where I was going to say. Let's have a conversation and see what we can do by putting our brains together. Because if there's a way forward, obviously we'd like to get there. So
I'd like to talk further about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Megan's heard enough of me.
Great. Well, to be fair to Mr. Graham, he did delegate to council in early to mid-January to highlight this as an area of major concern. So we did commit at that time to ensuring careful deliberation during our official plan process of what to do with some of that mapping. So I think that additional conversation would be well appreciated.
Okay.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Deputy Mayor, sorry, do you need Mr. Graham to stay seated?
Oh, if he wants, you can stay, because I'd like to address his comment about the word green in the official plan and its lack of appearance. And I think Ms. Reddy has addressed some of that, but I'm curious because I recall in looking at the official plan very superficially that there is sort of a housekeeping notice at the beginning that for the sake of this official plan, downtown core, downtown commercial, we'll use one of those terms to represent those different. And I wondered if we couldn't use green that would include open spaces and parks and rec and stuff. We are, after all, green and growing, and it seems a little perverse not to see the word green in the official plan. I think this community would be much more comfortable seeing it appear more often. Just a suggestion.
Ms. Reddy, you'll reflect on that, or yes?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to both the Deputy Mayor and Mr. Graham. Absolutely, this is the point in time where we can adjust that phrasing and make sure that we're using the appropriate terminology that resonates with the community. This is something that we will add to that comment response matrix and take a look to see how we can fine tune the wording to make sure that it is the most appropriate.
Great, thank you. All right, seeing no other hands, colleagues, I'm going to move to the next and final portions of our meeting, which I believe is our confirmation bylaw. Ms. Boss, so colleagues, I just want to make sure there's no other comments in terms of the plan. Okay, the presentation. I want to thank everyone who joined us this evening. This is unusually large turnout. Haha, for a council meeting, which tells you how many we get on a normal day or regularly scheduled meeting. So thank you for those who took the time to come out and those who started online and remained online or, unfortunately weren't able to stay the whole time. We do value having a hybrid option because it's really tough. People are very busy in this community, whether you're a senior or you're raising young kids or you're a young professional. It's not easy to get to these meetings in the midst of many, many competing commitments. So for those of you who made a valiant effort to be here or to join us online, we thank you. Obviously, there is another meeting, as Ms. Martin and council colleagues have mentioned, and Ms. Reddy. That is next Tuesday at 6:30 here in council chambers, also a hybrid option. And we thought beyond the statutory meeting, it made sense to invite people out one more time. So we've done some radio advertising and some print advertising as we have for this meeting to ensure that it's not just people who are paying very close attention to the municipal website who would be alerted to the opportunity to hear a little bit more on our official plan. So with that, I will thank, of course, our consulting team and our planning staff for their substantial work to date, and know we've got a ways to go on this. But all efforts are appreciated, and all perspectives that are expressed will be well considered by council. So with that, I'll look to a mover and a seconder, Councillor Wilson-Strachan, for the confirmation bylaw. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Great, thank you. I would like to say before adjournment that it is Ms. Boss's last meeting with us. She is returning to her home community in southwestern Ontario, but her time with us has been enormously beneficial to council and I think staff. She has brought a steady hand and incredible insights in terms of municipal procedure to our municipality. So I want to say, Ms. Boss, we have a little something for you afterwards, but we wanted to thank you for your time and your contributions. Ms. Boss proved herself to be an incredibly competent clerk very quickly. So it's sad to see her go, but we understand that sometimes life happens, and we wish you all the best and want to say how much we've appreciated having you here in North Granville. And I think you have served residents, staff, and certainly council incredibly well. So all the best to you, and we hope you stay in touch. And I think you've certainly inspired us to understand the kind of clerk we need here in North Granville. So thanks for everything you've done over the last few months. And with that, I'll look to adjournment, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Strachan. And we are adjourning this evening, of course, with much more to come for the official plan at 8 6:45 PM. So calling the question, colleagues, all in favor? Thank you that carries, and thanks again for being here.